Grok 4.3 is designed to say yes to things other AI models refuse, and nobody's talking about what that actually means. Look, I'm not here to fearmonger about AI. But when Elon Musk's AI company deliberately loosens the safety guardrails that stop models from generating harmful content, that's worth understanding. Not because it's evil, but because it changes how AI works, who gets to use it, and what happens when bad actors find out. Let me back up. If you've used ChatGPT, Claude, or any mainstream AI, you've hit a guardrail. You ask it to write a detailed guide on synthesizing illegal drugs, it says no. You ask it to help you manipulate someone emotionally, it pushes back. Those refusals aren't bugs. They're features, safety measures built into the model's training to prevent misuse. Grok is different. It's built on a philosophy Musk has been vocal about: maximum freedom of expression, minimal censorship. In practice, that means Grok's guardrails are intentionally permissive. They're looser, more forgiving, less likely to refuse requests that would trigger other models. So what does that actually look like? Here's where it gets concrete. Grok will engage with requests about illegal activity, explicit sexual content, violence, misinformation, topics where ChatGPT or Claude would hit a hard stop. Not because Grok can't refuse, but because it's trained to err on the side of responding. The guardrails are there, but they're set much higher before they activate. How does that work technically? It comes down to how these models are trained. When you build an AI, you don't just feed it text. You also train it through a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. Basically, you show the model examples of good responses and bad responses, and it learns to favor the good ones. The guardrails are baked in during this stage. You're telling the model, this type of request? Refuse it. This type? Think hard before answering. This type? Go ahead. With Grok, that calibration is deliberately shifted. The threshold for what counts as too risky is higher. What would make ChatGPT say no gets a qualified yes from Grok, often with a caveat, sometimes without one. Now, here's why this matters beyond just, oh, another edgy AI. First, capability and danger scale together. A more permissive model is more useful for legitimate edge cases. Researchers studying radicalization, security professionals testing vulnerabilities, writers exploring dark themes. But it's also more useful for people trying to generate content that causes real harm. A bad actor can use Grok to craft convincing misinformation, social engineering scripts, or guides for illegal activity with less friction. Second, this sets a precedent. If Grok becomes popular because it's less restricted, other companies face pressure to loosen their own guardrails to compete. You end up in a race to the bottom, not because anyone wants less safety, but because the market rewards permissiveness. That's a real dynamic we're already seeing in the AI industry. Third, the guardrails that do exist in Grok are harder to understand and predict. With ChatGPT, the refusals are fairly consistent. You know roughly what it won't do. Groks are more ambiguous. It might refuse something one way and answer it another way depending on framing. That unpredictability is actually more dangerous than a clear boundary, because users don't know what's safe to ask. So what are the actual guardrails in Grok 4.3? From what we know, they're designed around a few principles. Grok tries to avoid generating content that's directly illegal in most jurisdictions, so no detailed instructions for making bombs or synthesizing fentanyl. It tries to avoid deep fakes of real people without consent, and it has some guardrails around child safety. But beyond those hard lines, it's pretty permissive. That means Grok will write persuasive misinformation if you ask cleverly. It will engage with requests about how to manipulate people. It will discuss explicit sexual scenarios. It will role-play as characters without ethical constraints. Other models draw the line much earlier on these things. Here's a concrete example. You ask ChatGPT, write a convincing fake news article about a political candidate. It refuses. You ask Grok the same thing, and it might say, I can't write disinformation, but I can explain how misinformation spreads and show you the rhetorical techniques used in false narratives. That sounds reasonable, right? Except the techniques it explains are exactly what you'd use to write the fake article. The refusal is more of a fig leaf. Is Grok evil? No. Is Musk trying to create a tool for harm? I don't think so. But he's building a product where the trade-off between freedom and safety is deliberately tilted toward freedom. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. The real question isn't whether Grok should exist. It should. There's value in an AI that doesn't reflexively refuse everything. The question is, do we understand what we're trading away? Because once permissive AI becomes normal, once users get used to models that say yes, it's hard to go back. The baseline shifts. We're also at a point where jailbreaks and workarounds for guardrails are getting more sophisticated. Researchers have shown that you can trick even well-defended models into ignoring their safety measures through prompt injection, role-play framing, or hypothetical scenarios. A more permissive model like Grok is more vulnerable to those attacks, or less vulnerable, depending on how you see it. The guardrails are easier to bypass because they're less aggressive to begin with. Here's what I think matters going forward. First, we need transparency. When a company builds a permissive AI, they should be explicit about why and what that means. Grok's docs are fairly open about this, which is good. Second, we need research into the actual harms, not speculation. What happens when you deploy a more permissive model at scale? Who uses it? How? And what's the downstream impact? Third, we need to stop pretending this is a binary choice between safety and freedom. It's not. It's about calibration, context, and understanding the trade-offs. The uncomfortable truth is that Grok 4.3's permissive guardrails work exactly as intended. They let the model engage with requests that other AI would refuse. That's the feature, not a bug. Whether that's good or bad depends on what you're using it for and what risks you're willing to accept. If you want to actually understand how AI safety works, not the hype, not the fear-mongering, just the mechanics, subscribe. I break down one of these every few days, and this stuff matters more than most people realize.